Please watch the video until the end. Every moment matters to understand how the experiment broke us. Chapter 1. The Night Shift. They called it a miracle of convenience. A ring of magnets and a heartbeat of energy parked in low orbit meant to knit fuelless power across continents. I called it the thing that kept my grief manageable at night. My name is Mara Ellis. I am not a hero. I am an engineer who prefers torque wrenches to the solitude of my thoughts. I accepted the night shift on the station because a paycheck steadied my hands and because the hum of machines drowned the memory of a daughter I could not save. The project publicly, a power stabilizer privately, was a pet project of many governments, a machine designed to touch the fabric of the quantum sea that underpinned our physics. On the fourth week of my rotation, we were scheduled for a pulse test, a routine spike to confirm field coherence. I floated between panels, tightening a connector that refused to align, when Commander Velas, calm as always, told us to proceed. Lena, the physicist with a laugh like glass, initiated the sequence. The station exhaled a low, electrical sigh. Outside, the planet shone like a faultless coin. Then the lights stuttered. Chapter 2. The Pulse. When the pulse hit, it wasn't a sound. It was a sensation, as if the station had been submerged and we were suddenly aware of the water pressing into the cabins. Loose tools drifted. A panel spine split, and the air tasted of iron. Monitors flashed impossible readings, fields folding in on themselves like paper cranes. Lena's voice sharpened. Temporal leakage in Sector B4, cross-correlated with geomagnetic anomalies. That was her professional face. Her hand shook. We counted systems until the count meant nothing. Cameras caught static where the ACT module should have been, then a flicker. An image that belonged to no sensor we owned. It showed a corridor identical to ours, but with a wet sheen on the walls, like condensation or blood. For one breathless second, I saw a shadow move against that corridor, not cast by any light I recognized. Robbie tried to dismiss it. Interference, he said, but when he reached for the comm panel, his fingers phased through the surface as if the panel were a veil. He pulled back with the sound I have replayed 1,000 times, an animal sound, not a scientist. We logged the fault. We sealed the hatch and convened a council that felt more like a wake. Chapter 3. The Visitors. At first, they were only reflections. A face flickered on a viewport. My face, older, hollowed, winked, like a film burned too long. Then sounds. A child's laugh threaded through static, a lullaby I couldn't place. The station's internal cameras threw back views of rooms from apartments I once rented, of alleyways I had never seen, of a nursery painted in the wrong shade of blue. Objects rewrote themselves. My coffee mug was one moment ceramic, the next a tangle of metal. Tomas, the medic, watched a photo of his family dissolve into ash and then reform as strangers who wept silently. Panic spread like a virus. Our training manual said nothing about photographs that recomposed into other lives. We tried to keep to procedure. We ran diagnostics, isolated power nodes, attempted to dump the field. Each attempt birthed more anomalies. Doors would open onto landscapes where gravity bent sideways. A ladder leaned into a sky riven with braided light. Somethings, wisps, maybe entities, slipped along those seams. They were not solid, but they moved with malign purpose, as if testing edges. One night, if you can call a ship that hangs over a planet foreverless, the corridor lights hummed and a smell like cold iron swept by. I turned a corner, and there stood a child, dripping with stars, eyes too bright, wearing a spacesuit that never existed for infants. She smiled at me with my daughter's mouth. Chapter 4. The Containment. We learned quickly you cannot reason with the creases between worlds. You can only barricade, observe, and catalog. I logged every occurrence as if record-keeping could bind wild things. I told myself that seasons could be measured, that patterns could be found. I wanted a pattern. Patterns emerged. The anomalies preferred memory. They fed on the what if. A broken promise echoed into being as a creature wearing the shape of an abandoned lover. The more we remembered, the more those memories were invaded and rearranged. The machine had opened a ledger of possibilities. The ledger bled into our reality. Ravi began to hallucinate presence, an alternate Ravi who had never left his hometown and carried a guitar. Lena saw herself in a different life, a mother, laughing in a kitchen with a child who ate bread with jam. And my daughter came back in dreams, shaped like static, and every time she smiled, something in the walls shifted. We attempted to sever the field by collapsing the ring coils. The mathematics was heartbreak. To cut the mechanism would create a rupture. To stabilize would mean keeping open the corridor. We argued in sharp, jagged sentences that cut trust. Commander Velas decided to push a hard reset. That decision was a hinge. The reset did not close the seam. It widened it, like cutting a curtain and finding the room beyond bigger than the stage. Chapter 5. The Descent. We had two choices: fall into a cascade of realities or try to bring the machine down to Earth, hoping planetary mass would anchor the fields. The latter was madness, the former certain oblivion. We chose the lazier terror re-entry. The ship became a burial. Systems flared as the seam whispered to other seams, knitting other hypotheses together. The sky outside fractured into tiles of possibility, oceans where continents should be, cities built from bone, forests that moved like tribal waves. We entered one atmosphere and found another pressing back. Something latched to the hull. At first we thought it was frost, a crystalline accretion from a colder reality. It unfurled like lace and then pulsed like a mouth. Through the hull we could hear voices, not muffled, but crisp, as if there were a street just outside. I pressed my palm to the outer pane, and for a second it was a child's window pane on a street from my childhood. I smelled coffee and rain and the exact perfume my mother wore. We survived re-entry in a debris field of outcomes. We crashed somewhere that resembled home. There were buildings with familiar names, but the lettering shifted when you tried to read it. A man on the pavement, with my sister's haircut, asked for directions to a place that didn't exist anymore. None of the phones worked. The sky had a second moon, a rumor of gravity that tugged at the edges of our map. The government would later call our signals garbled and claim the station disintegrated. They called us lucky survivors. I call it a late awakening. Chapter 6. The Ledger. The worst truth is a ledger that keeps reopening. We thought bringing it down would anchor the field. I learned that the field did not anchor to mass, it anchored to choice. After the crash, I sat beneath a street lamp that flickered in and out like a slow heartbeat. Around me, the city shifted like a poorly rendered dream. Lena walked past with a child that was not there, laughing as if the world were wholly theirs. Ravi walked by, hands buried in pockets, because this reality had given him pockets where none had existed before. We had all been grafted into versions of lives that might have been, and the graft festered. At night, I write entries in a pad that approximates the logs we sent into space. I leave crumbs of reality for myself. An old receipt, a song lyric, a hair from my sleeve to anchor my memory. Sometimes it works. Sometimes a stranger crosses my palm and whispers a memory that I somehow lived in another skin. I have started to believe the seams are not just windows, but hungry mouths, tasting our regrets and designing visitors from them. If someone asks me whether the machine was responsible, I have no single answer. Did the experiment create monsters? Or did it show the beasts that were already patient in the dark? Maybe both. Perhaps the real horror is not what came through, but what it revealed. Our lives are a palimpsest of choices, and when you scrabble beneath the top sheet, the ink of other selves waits to be read. Tonight, as I speak into this recorder, something trembles at the edge of my hearing. A lullaby sings from a window across the street. A childless car engine revs with a song I used to hum to my daughter. The seam is patient. It knows loss. It keeps offering us versions of what we once were and what we might have been. I do not know where the other crew are now. I know some have vanished into lives they find preferable, and others have become fixtures in streets that delineate no map I can read. I know this, the field did not end. It taught us to notice the thinness of our skin. It taught us the vocabulary of regret. So if you are listening, if you decide to peer at the edges of what is offered, be careful. The ledger is always open to adding a new line. If you enjoyed this tale, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, give the video a like, comment your thoughts, and share the video with others who love dark, speculative horror.